Reproduction in animals. Learning about reproduction in animals. Reproduction is one of the most important and fundamental characteristics of living organisms, which involves the transmission of genetic material from one generation to the other. Every individual in a species has a limited lifespan, but reproduction among the individuals ensures survival of the species over a long period of time. Reproduction is responsible for an increase in number of the individuals of that species, and it plays an important role in the evolution of species. In this chapter, we shall learn how reproduction takes place in animals. Modes of reproduction. There are two modes by which animals reproduce. They are sexual reproduction and
asexual reproduction.
Sexual reproduction. In animals, males and females have different reproductive parts or organs. The reproductive parts in animals produce gametes that fuse to form a zygote. It is the zygote which develops into a new individual. This type of reproduction, beginning from the fusion of male and female gametes, is called as sexual reproduction. Let us find out the reproductive parts in humans and study the process of reproduction in them. The male reproductive organs include a pair of testes, singular testes, two sperm ducts, and a penis. The testes produce the male gametes called the sperms. Millions of sperms are produced by the testes. Look at the picture of a sperm. Though sperms are very small in size, each has a head, a middle piece, and a tail. Does it appear to be a single cell? Indeed. Each sperm is a single cell with all the usual cell components. Female reproductive organs. The female reproductive organs are a pair of ovaries, oviducts, fallopian tubes, and the uterus. Ovary produce female gametes called ova, eggs. In human beings, a single matured egg is released into the oviduct by one of the ovaries every month. Uterus is the part where development of the baby takes place. Like the sperm, an egg is also a single cell. The size of eggs in animals varies. The egg may be very small as in humans, but larger as in hens. Ostrich egg is the largest. Fertilization. The first step in the process of reproduction is the fusion of a sperm and an ovum. When sperms come in contact with an egg, one of the sperms may fuse with the egg. Such fusion of the egg and the sperm is called fertilization. During fertilization, the nuclei of the sperm and the egg fuse to form a single nucleus. This results in the formation of an egg or a zygote. Did you know that the zygote is the beginning of a new individual? The process of fertilization is the meeting of an egg cell from the mother and a sperm cell from the father. So, the new individual inherits some characteristics from the mother and some from the father. Fertilization which takes place inside the female body is called internal fertilization. Internal fertilization occurs in many animals including humans, cows, dogs, and hens. Have you heard of test tube babies? In some women, oviducts are blocked. These women are unable to bear babies because sperms cannot reach the egg for fertilization. In such cases, doctors collect freshly released egg and sperms and keep them together for a few hours for IVF or in vitro fertilization. Fertilization outside the body. In case fertilization occurs, the zygote is allowed to develop for about a week and then it is placed in the mother's uterus. Complete development takes place in the uterus and the baby is born like any other baby. Babies born through this technique are called test tube babies. This term is actually misleading because babies cannot grow in test tubes. You will be surprised to know that in many animals, fertilization takes place outside the body of the female. In these animals, fertilization takes place in water. Let us find out how this happens. Activity: visit some ponds or slow-flowing streams during spring or rainy season. Look out for clusters of frog eggs floating in water. During spring or rainy season, frogs and toads move to ponds and slow-flowing streams. When the male and female come together in water, the female lays 100 of eggs. Unlike hen's eggs, frog's eggs is not covered by a shell and is comparatively very delicate. A layer of jelly holds the eggs together and provides protection to the eggs. As the eggs are laid, the male deposits sperms over them. Each sperm swims randomly in water with the help of its long tail. The sperm comes in contact with the eggs. This results in fertilization. This type of fertilization, in which the fusion of a male and female gamete takes place outside the body of the female, is called as external fertilization. It is very common in aquatic animals such as fish, starfish, etc. Why do fish and frogs lay eggs in hundreds, whereas a hen lays only one egg at a time? Though these animals lay hundreds of eggs and release millions of sperms, all the eggs do not get fertilized and develop into new individuals. This is because the eggs and sperms get exposed to water movement, wind, and rainfall. Also, there are other animals in the pond which may feed on eggs. Thus, production of large number of eggs and sperms is necessary to ensure fertilization of at least a few of them. Development of embryo. Fertilization results in the formation of zygote, which begins to develop into an embryo. The zygote divides repeatedly to give rise to a ball of cells. The cells then begin to form groups that develop into different tissues and organs of the body. This developing structure is termed as an embryo. The embryo gets embedded in the water of the uterus for further development. The embryo continues to develop in the uterus. It gradually develops the body parts such as hands, legs, head, eyes, ears, etc. The stage of the embryo in which all the body parts can be identified is called a fetus. When the development of the fetus is complete, the mother gives birth to the baby. Internal fertilization takes place in hens also. But do hens give birth to babies like human beings and cows? You know that they do not. Then, how are chicks born? Let us find out. Soon after fertilization, the zygote divides repeatedly and travels down the oviduct. As it travels down, many protective layers are found around it. The hard shell that you see in a hen's egg is one such protective layer. After the hard shell is formed around the developing embryo, the hen finally lays the egg. The embryo takes about 3 weeks to develop into a chick. You must have seen the hen sitting on the eggs to provide sufficient warmth. Did you know that development of the chick takes place inside the eggshell during this period? After the chick is completely developed, it bursts open the eggshell. In animals which undergo external fertilization, development of the embryo takes place outside the female body. The embryos continue to grow within their egg coverings. After the embryos develop, the eggs hatch. You must have seen numerous tadpoles swimming in ponds and streams. Viviparous and oviparous animals. We have learned that some animals give birth to young ones while some animals lay eggs which later develop into young ones. The animals which give birth to young ones are called viviparous animals. Those animals which lay eggs are called oviparous animals. Young ones to adults. The new individuals which are born or hatched from the eggs continue to grow till they become adults. In some animals, the young ones may look very different from the adults. Recall the life cycle of the silkworm. Egg, larva or caterpillar, pupa, adult. Frog is another such example. Observe the different stages of frogs starting from the egg to the adult stage. We find that there are 3 distinct stages, that is, egg, tadpole, larva, adult. Don't the tadpoles look so different from the adults? Can you imagine that these tadpoles would someday become frogs? Similarly, the caterpillar or the pupa of silkworm looks very different from the adult moth. The features that are present in the adult are not found in these young ones. Then what happens to the tadpoles or caterpillars thereafter? The tadpoles changes into frog and the caterpillar changes into a silkworm. You must have seen a beautiful moth emerging out of the cocoon. In the case of tadpoles, they transform into adults capable of jumping and swimming. The transformation of the larva into an adult through drastic changes is called metamorphosis. What about the changes that we observe in our body as we grow? Do you think we too undergo metamorphosis? In human beings, body parts similar to those present in the adults are present from the time of birth.
Asexual reproduction.
Production of the offspring, new organism, by a single individual without the involvement of gametes
Is called an asexual reproduction.
Let us observe hydra. In each hydra, there may be one or more bulges. These bulges are the developing new individuals and they are called buds. Recall the presence of buds in yeast. In hydra 2, the new individuals develop as outgrowths from a single parent plant. This type of reproduction in which only a single parent is involved is called as
Asexual reproduction.
Since new individuals develop from the buds in hydra, this type of
Asexual reproduction
is called budding. Another method of
asexual reproduction
is observed in the microscopic organisms like amoeba. We know about the structure of amoeba. Amoeba is a single-celled organism. It begins the process of reproduction by the division of its nucleus into 2 nuclei. This is followed by division of its body into 2, each part receiving a nucleus. Finally, 2 amoebae are produced from one parent amoeba. This type of
asexual reproduction
in which an animal reproduces by dividing into 2 individuals is called as binary fission. Story of Dolly, the cloner. Cloning is the process of an exact copy of a cell, any other living part, or a complete organism. Cloning of an animal was successfully performed for the very first time by Ian Wilmot and his colleagues at the Roslin Institute in Edinburgh, Scotland. They cloned successfully a sheep named Dolly. Dolly was born on 5th July 1996 and was the first mammal to be cloned. During the process of cloning Dolly, a cell was collected from the mammary gland of a female Finn Dorset sheep. Simultaneously, an egg was obtained from a Scottish black-faced ewe. The nucleus was removed from the egg. Then, the nucleus of the mammary gland cell from the Finn Dorset sheep was inserted into the egg of the Scottish black-faced ewe whose nucleus had been removed. The egg thus produced was implanted into the Scottish black-faced ewe. Development of this egg followed normally and finally Dolly was born. Though Dolly was given birth by the Scottish black-faced ewe, it was found to be absolutely identical to the Finn Dorset sheep from which the nucleus was taken. Since the nucleus from the egg of the Scottish black-faced ewe was removed, Dolly did not show any characteristic of Scottish black-faced ewe. Dolly was a healthy clone to the Finn Dorset sheep and produced several offspring to her own through normal sexual means. Unfortunately, Dolly died on 14th February 2003 due to a certain lung disease. Since Dolly, several attempts have been made to produce clone mammals. However, many die before the birth or die soon after the birth. The cloned animals are many a times found to be born with severe abnormalities. Summary: there are two modes by which animals reproduce. They are sexual reproduction and asexual. Reproduction resulting from the fusion of male and female gametes is called sexual reproduction. The ovary produces female gametes called ova, and the testes produce male gametes called sperms. The fusion of ovum and sperm is called fertilization. The fertilized egg is called a zygote. Fertilization that takes place inside the female body is called internal fertilization. This is observed in human beings and other animals such as hens, cows, and dogs. Fertilization that takes place outside the female body is called external fertilization. This is observed in frogs, fish, starfish, etc. Animals such as human beings, cows, and dogs, which give birth to young ones, are called viviparous animals. Animals such as hen, frog, lizard, and butterfly, which lay eggs, are called oviparous animals. The transformation of the larva into adult through drastic changes is called metamorphosis. The type of reproduction in which only a single parent is involved is called
asexual reproduction.
In Hydra, new individuals develop from the buds. This method of
Asexual reproduction
is called budding. Amoeba reproduces itself by dividing into two. This type of
asexual reproduction
is called binary fission. With a note of enjoy learning, let us end this chapter. Keep learning.